is Tuesday, November 21, 2023. I'm Crash Connell. Mary Danielsen is here. The last fresh podcast of this week.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow's going to be a replay with you and
Tricia Burton, the Mormon expert.
That was back from August. And then regular music programming here on the radio frequencies on Thursday and Friday. So, boy, we got a great guest today. It's been a while. That's going to be a good show. Buckle up.
Yes, buckle up. Patrick Wood is my guest today. We are so glad to have him back on the podcast, and we have a lot to talk about, mostly pertaining to Israel, surprisingly enough, but it's going to be maybe some things you haven't heard about that have happened over the weekend. So we're going to talk about that. My scripture today is Romans 11:25-29. For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sake, but concerning the election, they are beloved for the sake of the fathers. For the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable. Praise God. Won't you pray with me this morning? Lord, once again we come to you, bring you our lives afresh and anew today. Cause us to grow in grace in all things, Lord, so that we can better serve you and one another. We lift up Israel as a nation. Lord, we thank you that what you have promised to them, you will fulfill in every detail. Thank you that you are bringing many home to that land and executing your perfect will for all those involved. We also lift up the victims of the war over there who are suffering loss and other hardships, Lord, that you would have your hand on them. We lift up Patrick to you, Lord, and Shar and family, and ask that you give him strength and good health and to finish well so he can continue to labor for eternal things. We ask for all unspoken needs as well, Lord, and thank you ahead of time for your provision, Lord, and we just long to see you. We pray that you'd come quickly. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, Patrick Wood, author, lecturer, economist, is a leading and critical expert on sustainable development, green economy, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and technocracy. He is the author of Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation, and The Evil Twins of Technocracy and Transhumanism. He's an expert on the Trilateral Commission, their policies and achievements in creating a self-proclaimed new international economic order. And I would say he's always been ahead of the curve on technocracy and transhumanism and global just about everything for many, many years. The site is technocracy.news, and it's really worth your time because the content is refreshed often, technocracy.news. On Substack, he authors The Quickening Report. Patrick, welcome back to Stand Up for the Truth.
Thank you, Mary. Good to be with you again.
It's great to have you back. Tell us a little bit about the Quickening Report. I think that's new since we talked, and how people can access that.
Well, sort of. I started this originally with a video presentation and a series of weekly shows. I couldn't do that anymore, so I just continued writing. And the idea was that things that I couldn't really write on Technocracy News, I would do over there because there's lots of things that I want to talk about, but sometimes it isn't appropriate to be talking on the Technocracy News site. So I'm charge $7.50 a month. I think it is like that. And people can go and subscribe. I don't write there every week or every day, but when I do, hopefully it's something that needs to be said.
Great. It's just wonderful to have that input about something such an important topic that we're looking at, technology and how it's actually changing our world incredibly. I want to talk about today anti-Semitism. And
yes.
I'm calling the podcast Anti-Semitism on the Rise or Being Unmasked. And there's a reason for that. I think we're going to peel that back over the course of this podcast. But some of the headlines the last few days might surprise people and some not. I want to start with some very recent headlines that center around some well-known conservative pundits, actually very well-known, who seem to be presenting a more right-wing brand of anti-Semitism. And I want to ask Patrick what he thinks about this, but I want to give you the context first. And the listener, too, will have their own thoughts on it. So just bear with me for a couple of minutes while I lay this out. Yesterday morning, I read an email from David Horowitz of Front Page Magazine and of the Freedom Center about his breaking all ties with Candace Owens, who just a few years ago became a bit of a mover and shaker within conservatism after being invited to speak at a conference sponsored by Mr. Horowitz. And this is where she met Charlie Kirk and became a national figure after connecting with him. But it was David Horowitz who continued to promote and host events centered around her starting in 2018. Now, David Horowitz is a former Marxist. He has a fascinating biography. He's a conservative Jewish commentator today. And he comments on the news, and he has been here on Stand Up for the Truth. Well, the editors at Front Page had a few red flags about her giving platforms to anti-Israel voices, but they felt this was not really part of a pattern at the time. But after October 7th, they kind of saw that the goalposts were being moved by her due to a promotion of several anti-Semitic lies. Now, she has compared Israel to the segregated South of the United States, which is a poke at the apartheid state, a charge we hear from Israel's enemies. But her most ignorant statement to somehow back that up was also echoed by AOC, that the Muslim quarter in Jerusalem is a ghetto, and Israel forces 350,000 Muslims to live there and nowhere else in Israel, which proves she knows nothing about Israel. Then she implied that Israel was engaged in genocide for defending itself against Hamas. Now, this kind of startled me. So she is no longer welcomed by those who gave her a place in the spotlight, kind of game over. And then Ben Shapiro called her out and suggested she could stop taking a paycheck from the Daily Wire any day now. Hint, hint. But then Tucker Carlson got in the fray, having Owens on his program. And this is where I think it got a little bit weird. He said, and I'm going to summarize this so I can bring Patrick in on this. Tucker Carlson said that while he was horrified by the Hamas attack, he thought that the emotional response to it by the media was disproportionate. And then he made some strange comments regarding Jewish donors to large universities who are now pulling their support over anti-Semitism. Carlson accused them of supporting white genocide, the notion that the deep state, the left, or the Jews specifically are working to replace white people with minorities, and these rich Jewish donors are, quote, calling my children immoral for being white. So in other words, the Jews, who are largely Democrats and liberals in America by a wide margin, and we've known this, they paid universities to hate whites and says, why? And Carlson says, why shouldn't I be mad at you? And then Owens says, where were you, Jews, when we endured all that? I mean, do they actually believe they're being persecuted by the Jews? And let me add one more thing here. Carlson frequently touts this so-called Great Replacement conspiracy theory, which claims that progressive Americans have been attempting to flood the U.S. with non-white immigrants to retain political power. And then Elon Musk got in the fray. And Patrick, I am scratching my head at this. I would still say the majority of the political right supports Israel. But this is kind of disturbing, and I don't think it's insignificant. So please tell me what you think about this.
Wow, this is just a horrible topic.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is. Basically, the idea of anti-Semitism is hatred of the Jews, not a political statement at all. It's, in my opinion, it has nothing really to do with the land per se, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the policies that Israel might have put up over the years. There's been all kinds of things they've done, and when you get down, when you take the leaves off the artichoke or the onion. What you end up with is pure hatred for Jews. And this is what we need to focus on, in my opinion. This is the virus of the mind that infects people, to blame Jews for everything that's wrong with the world. Right. That's what the original Protocols of Zion was all about. Blame the Jews. They're all the scourge of the earth, sort of thing. That's not true. on so many levels, and that's not true. But this is the charge that Hamas, for instance, Hezbollah puts against Iran too, and puts against Israel, that they do not belong in that land because they just want to kill them all. Everybody has to be in land, on some piece of land somewhere, whether you own it or rent it or whatever. Everybody has to have their feet planted on the earth. The Jews do. They're in Israel right now. There's a big concentration of them there, and Hamas has really no interest in the land per se, but to get the Jews off of it. So it's about killing Jews, and this is what is come to America to infect the minds of the people here in America to think that the Jews are the source of all their troubles. Period.
Yeah, that's crazy. And only one. It seems like they're the only people group that would ever be allowed to have a moment in the spotlight. This is mind-boggling, because if you said these things about Islam, off with your head. And I mean that literally. Only 1 in 6 American Jews are conservatives. 71% vote Democrat in this country, according to Pew Research. And I've known this for a very, very long time. That's not really news. But Patrick, there's a paradox at the heart of, I think, American Jewish identity. Being a liberal in America seems to require ignoring the anti-Semitic decay that has come to permeate liberal institutions. Go ahead.
Well, it really has, and we look at the spectrum of our Jewish population in America. There's some on the right, there's some on the left, and in the middle, whatever. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of disbelief or unbelief that goes along with this stuff. When you turn away from reality, you can believe almost anything. It doesn't really matter. So here you have all these people that are doing stuff like giving money for causes that shouldn't be given money, and you scratch your head on this. How could they do that to where it turns around and bites them in the keister, and they don't get it. They just don't get it. This is the way America has been for a long time, and it's not just the Jews, for Pete's sake. It's lots of people in America that have in the same boat. Right. But I've studied this and I dealt with this for over 40 years with this anti-Semitism stuff. It all boils down hatred of the Jews and blaming them for anything under the sun that you don't like. And I've seen this time and time again. People send me literature. Oh my gosh, they send me emails and horrible stuff.
Wow.
And I just hit the delete button,
Wow.
but or put it in the round file.
Yeah.
But the people who get infected with anti-Semitism turn bitter. You can't get them out of their mindset, no matter what you say to them. And they just go from bad to worse.
And they were blamed, the Jews were blamed for the plague in Europe too, and they weren't getting sick. Well, they weren't getting sick because of the laws that they followed, the dietary and cleanliness laws in the Old Testament. That's why they weren't getting sick. But that didn't keep the world from blaming them for the plague and many, many other things. What do you think about these conservatives' loose lips? I guess it really kind of caught me off guard. What do you think about it?
On what now?
The conservatives and their loose lips about what they really think about Carlson and Candace. And what do you think about that? I mean,
there's been a propaganda campaign for at least 20 years to twist the Christian church into believing a different narrative about Israel. There's lots of different flavors of it, but like, replacement theology, for instance. But there's other things as well, where the church and evangelical church and denominations as well are twisting history to say that Israel doesn't even exist, really, except somebody's in somebody's mind. But the people there are imposters, and the Palestinians have right to that land, and blah blah blah. As soon as a church adopts that position, it changes everything. It changes their politics, the things that they will say, to defend their positions. And it is amazing to me that so many Christians have just fallen for this lie. But that out of that, you see the conservative movement, because many Christians are really part of that movement. You see that percolating up into politics and media and social media, posts and stuff. And you wonder, well, how could this be? How can they get to this point? Well, we can look back over the 20 years or 25 years, and we see how it's been done.
Yeah, absolutely. The church, churches aren't teaching the dispensationalism of that God still has a plan for Israel, which permeates the Bible. There's really no question. There's really no. It's very plainly stated in the scriptures, and yet now here's what I'm worried about too, Patrick, is this next generation. The Gen Z or any even millennials, I don't know where they're at exactly, but if the parents aren't learning and teaching from the scriptures about Israel, it's going to filter down, and now we're going to have anti-Semitic young people, a whole generation that doesn't believe Israel is important or remains in God's plan. It's kind of like prophecy. Prophecy has fallen by the wayside among that same demographic. If you go to prophecy conferences, it's usually older people is the general population of a prophecy conference.
Yes.
So I guess, Patrick, I'm a little fearful of the next generation. They're going to be even more less supportive of Israel. One article I read said young evangelical support for Israel drops by half in just 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well, does it?
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. And this is part of the effect of removing Bible prophecy from the pulpit. Go figure that you would think that in any book you would think that the last chapter is really the best part of it, because that's where all the things are revealed.
Yeah.
That wrapping up everything in the book is all about. You think that Christians would say, "Wow, that's a chapter we really want to get after."
Yeah.
But no, they're turning away from it, and they just want to. So many people don't want anything to do with Bible prophecy whatsoever. So they don't know. They really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and they're not teaching the Old Testament either, or they'd understand that a nation can be born in a day, and that a tongue can be restored. The ancient Hebrew tongue can be restored, and that God would gather His people a final time. As so much in Isaiah and Ezekiel, and they're ignoring the Old Testament. So I guess what do we expect? But it's kind of heartbreaking. Patrick, I want to talk about this thing called Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I don't know if the listeners know what that is as a basis, a long-running basis of anti-Semitism. What is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion?
Well, I'm gonna start out by saying, if anybody wants to look at it, don't. Don't bother. Honestly, it's poison. It's like if you want to get strict on or whatever, go do it. But this is just poison. What the protocols of Zion have been debunked so many times over the years as a fictitious screed against Jews, setting them up and to get the blame for everything on the planet. And this has been a mainstay document for Muslims over the decades. I just listened to some imams citing it recently.
Yeah.
That that this is still a core thing that they're holding on to accuse the Jews of anything that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So this actually started about I think it was I want to say 1890, somewhere around that area. But it's been circulated multiple times. You know that the devil is the one who has been circulating it.
Right.
Every time things get settled down and here it comes, everybody reads it again and oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it, and that's all the trouble right there.
Yeah.
But this is one of the most scurrilous, horrible documents on the face of the planet, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it purports to be minutes of meetings held secretly by Jewish wise men, quote unquote, plotting to control the world. Basically, is the chief of the Jewish wise men explains how to turn non-Jews into slaves and how to take hold of various global institutions. The text contains a critique of an analysis of methods that can be used to gain control of the world and a description of the universal state, capital S, to come. And every single Arab state, Muslim country, has published or distributed it over the years. Actually, in the U.S., Henry Ford is the one who had it printed. Henry Ford is horribly anti-Semitic. But by 1917, it was a bestseller in Europe and the U.S., where it was published by American car magnate and notorious anti-Semite Henry Ford. It says it's a conspiracy to destroy Christianity as well and control the world, take over the media, replace the money markets. And, of course, Hitler mentioned it. The Nazis mentioned it. Yes,
absolutely. And I want to stress again, this was not written or there was no meetings that took place. That this was just a pure forgery, but they blamed it on the Jews. Period.
I'm amazed that it's still in circulation, to be honest with you, although maybe I shouldn't be. But like I said, from not one Muslim country has not published it or distributed it, and then it feeds the Holocaust deniers as well. So I just wanted to give the listener an idea of what that is, because unfortunately,
you'll see it mentioned.
Yes,
in fact, it's mentioned in the Hamas covenant, which I just read the other day for the first time, word for word. Oh my gosh!
Oh gee!
But it's out there on the internet. People can go and read it if you want. But you'll see the protocols of Zion are actually mentioned by name in this document.
Wow. And I think when you hear commentators, this helps activate our discernment, because when you hear commentators say certain things like what Candace Owens said and things like that, I think you can hear some of that in these protocols, and people, I think it's helpful to have the history of where a lot of these lies came from, so people can see through them, and I think it's very, very helpful. Along with some of these lies. Now, David Regan has a great article, because you and I were talking yesterday about this being spiritual in nature, of course, and I know that Christians believe this, and we have 5 minutes through in this particular half. But David Regan says, orchestrated by Satan, deceptive slogans in the propaganda war against Israel. And when you watch these people protesting, there are signs, of course, and we roll our eyes at some of them because it's like the same old, Patrick. But the number one, he lists several here, David does, and he says, the number one is set Palestine free from the river to the sea. Well, we all know that people are geographically challenged, Patrick. What are they talking about? Because they have no knowledge or what river or sea they're talking about, and what does that actually mean?
They really don't. I know they really don't have a clue at all. But the river, of course, refers to the Jordan River, and the sea represents the Mediterranean. So if you're going to push all those Jews into the sea, from the river to the sea, there will be no Jews left in the whole area.
Right.
They want to kill them all. They don't want to kill just a few. They want to kill them all.
Yes, and I think it's important to understand this phrase, that is what that means.
Yes, I know. Oh gosh,
yes.
you know, there's a statement in this covenant that is striking to me when they talk about the stones and the trees. Will say, "Oh Muslims, oh Abdullah, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him. Come and kill him." Only the Garhad tree, this is a quote I'm reading here, evidently a kind of tree would not do that because it is one of the trees of the Jews.
Oh my!
So the Jews have their own trees apparently, but they, when they say stones and the trees will say, "There's a Jew behind me. Come and kill him." That's everywhere. Every Jew they could get their hands on, they would kill them all. It's like this is not just speculation on our part, or what. This is what they are saying in their official documents. It's about killing Jews. It's not about displacing them from the land per se, but considering that they do not believe that Jews should have any right to have any land anywhere in the world. The only way to solve that is to kill them. They just don't want them to occupy space.
Any space
on planet Earth.
Right. And it's amazing to me. I think some of this is new to Westerners. I think this has spread something around the world in 60 seconds or less, amazingly, where Americans, because they don't study history, they don't study geography, they know nothing about the Middle East conflict, now all of a sudden people have an opinion and they're raising up signs. They don't even know what they're talking about. Here's another one from David Regan. End apartheid in Israel. People don't know what that means. Because there are 2 million Palestinians in Israel. They're citizens. They have freedom to live where they want. There's no enforced separation of Jews and Arabs of any type. People can vote. End apartheid in Israel. Is this just a matter of ignorance too, Patrick?
Totally. They didn't understand what it was in South Africa either.
That's true. That's true.
It's just so they just take that word, borrow it from South Africa, and apply it for the Jews. It is ridiculous. There's the Palestinian Jews, the Palestinians that live within Israel, are aghast what's going on with Hamas. They don't want it. They have a safe haven in the world where they live right now. By and large, I'm sure that some of them are, mad for whatever reason, but there's so many of them that are Israeli citizens.
Wow, very interesting. This list by David Regan of all the deceptive slogans people see in this propaganda war is very, very interesting, and I think it really does help us to define some terms and understand. So when we're watching the news and we see people holding up these signs, we can go, wait a minute, I can cut through that. I can tell you exactly what's wrong with that, and just the ignorance that's going on here. So this is Mary Danielsen. You're listening to Stand Up for the Truth. Our guest is Patrick Wood today, technocracy.news. And we are talking about anti-Semitism. As he said at the beginning, it's a tough topic. It really, really is difficult. But I think we're trying to really help you to be more discerning when you watch the news on these things. So we're going to take a 2-minute break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk more about Israel and anti-Semitism with Patrick Wood.
Feedback, questions, and topic suggestions are always appreciated. Email us at comments@standupforthetruth.com.
Welcome back to Stand Up for the Truth. My name is Mary Danielsen, and we are speaking with Patrick Wood today. Technocracy.news. What a great website. And in the first half, we talked about some conservative pundits who seem to be letting their anti-Semitism slip. We're just curious. Why this? Why that? We're just curious. I think it's a counterfeit curiosity. I think things are coming out that maybe they didn't want to come out. There's an article about Candace Owen by JNS, Jerusalem News Service. And he says, this is not just about Israel. It's about the survival of Western civilization, which the Islamic jihadis have been working to destroy. And it's about the sad caricature that Candace has become. And you can go back to listen to the first part if you want to understand where she's coming from. He says, Jews are canaries in the mine of civilization. The West is next, and America above all. He says it's one thing to have been alive in the 30s and not realize where the Nazis were heading. It's quite another thing to be alive during a 75-year campaign by Islamic jihadis to finish the job Hitler started and fail to stand against their open campaign to create a second Holocaust. And he ends with, we are in a civilizational war. And these conservatives are either on the sidelines or actively supporting the crusade against the West. It's really just one or the other. What do you think, Patrick? Are you there? I think we've lost Patrick. We were talking about the spiritual aspect of this. So I'm just going to go back to this until we can get him back. You want to grab Crash? Yeah, we're going to see if we can get Patrick back on this. But David Regan has a great article, and he talks about this being spiritual. He says, orchestrated by Satan, deceptive slogans in the propaganda war against Israel. And the first one was set Palestine free from the river to the sea, end apartheid in Israel. And then the next one is free Palestine from colonial oppression. And Crash is in here. We're going to see if we can get Patrick back. Free Palestine from colonial oppression. And David Regan said, this is absolute nonsense. The Jewish people are not colonialists. They are not outsiders who have taken over someone else's land. The land they currently occupy, and much more that they do not yet occupy, was given to them by God. And we hear that a lot.
This is Danielson. I believe we have Patrick Wood with us back on the air.
That's good.
We weren't done with you. Don't hang up till we're done.
For sure.
Yes. Well, and what I was saying, could you hear me, Patrick, when I was talking about civilization, the end as we know it?
Only until the call dropped.
Okay. Well, and I'm just going to reiterate, this is the JNS News Service, and he says, it's one thing to have been alive in the 30s and not realize where the Nazis were heading, but it's quite another thing to be alive during a 75-year campaign by Islamic jihadis to finish the job Hitler started. And he says, this is a civilizational war. I think Christians in the West are next. What do you think about that?
Yes, they've been on a chopping block for a long time. Mm-hmm. And Islam wants to take over the world, period. Mm-hmm. And they're doing a pretty good job of it so far. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Back to David Regan. Free Palestine from colonial oppression. And then the next one is end 75 years of occupation. Patrick, I didn't know Israel was an occupying power. What's up with that?
Well, they're not, not at all. But
right.
This is a lie that just comes in. That people just say it. Well, it must be true. Mm-hmm. It isn't. Mm-hmm. But historically, it's not true, and any way you slice it, it's not true.
Right. Wow. Well, it doesn't keep them from saying it. Free Gaza is another nonsensical slogan. Israel granted complete sovereignty to Gaza in 2005. The Israeli army forcibly evicted 9,000 Jews from their homes and settlements and turned the entire area over to the Palestinians. So there's another lie. And then stop Israeli genocide. This is just crazy stuff. Just lie upon lie upon lie. And David concludes, the outbreak of massive irrational anti-Semitism worldwide is a supernatural event orchestrated by Satan. He hates the Jewish people with a passion because they are God's chosen people through whom he gave the scriptures and the Messiah, Jesus Christ. And he hates the promise to bring a great remnant of Jews to salvation. So we're talking spiritual warfare on a level that I don't think we completely grasp. What do you think about the spiritual warfare when it comes to the Jewish people?
This is exactly the issue. There is a spiritual war, a spiritual element of this that only can only come from the spiritual world. When you see the hatred that sets into people's hearts when they become anti-Semitic, you can't explain it any other way. There's no rationale for their hatred, but the devil is apparently able to cast that into somebody's mind or suggest it to them, whatever. But when people get hardened in this, they just go off the deep end.
Yeah.
And they need to. Christians should be very careful to not fall into this, because if you want to get on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of God, keep your eyeballs and your hands off Israel. Yes. You don't have to agree with them on anything. Has not anything to do with policies or what they do or don't do over there or anywhere else in the world, for that matter. Just keep your hands off of Israel. Yeah. Just leave them be.
Yeah.
That they're God's business there, not ours.
Yep, absolutely.
So many Christians are falling in this trap to set themselves up to be an enemy of God because they're turning against the apple of his eye.
Yeah,
just
that's a
don't
dangerous
want to do
place.
that.
Yeah, that's a dangerous place to be. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I've said over many, many years, I've said, Israel should just do what they want, because no matter what they do, somebody's going to be unhappy. Because the UN, with all their resolutions against condemning Israel for A, B, C, and D, no matter what they do, Netanyahu of late, with the Supreme Court wanting to restructure that, they can't do anything right. So why bother? Because they shouldn't feel the need to please the world with what they do. But, the Christians need to be careful also, because when these violent, satanically fueled people who are protesting understand the Christian connection being grafted in and the connection that we have to Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're going to turn on us. That's what I'm thinking. And then we're really going to have, I think Christians need to not be naive about where this could possibly be headed. What do you think about persecution coming out of this?
Yeah, when it really sets into people's mind that Jesus Christ was a Jew, and that all Christians follow this Jew, how can that be interpreted any other way?
Amen. Yes.
Case closed.
Right. It's not rocket science, is it?
No.
Wow. Yeah, some perilous times ahead, and I think we need to be ready for that as we see this happening, because in September it wasn't happening, and in October it was happening, and I think it can the world can turn incredibly dark incredibly quickly, so we need to be on our toes. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit, Patrick, because technocracy is your area of expertise, and many years ago I read a book called IBM and the Holocaust that, again, I could not believe that IBM was using the latest computing technology in the 30s, these punch cards, to round up the Jews and to begin to have a crude database on all the Jews throughout Europe. And so technology has been used for a very long time for evil purposes. But I want to ask you, where does technology and technocracy fit in, do you feel, when it comes to what's going on in the Middle East at this point?
Well, there's no doubt that technology can fall into the hands of evil people, and this has happened in many cases for sure. But it's kind of it's gone beyond that at this point, where the technology that we see, things that like this universal ID, central bank digital currencies, and the surveillance technology that's everywhere now. We look at all of this like a net that's closing in on society, and and AI especially. What's happening is reality is collapsing because of this technology. People don't understand it. They have no clue what it's all about anymore, and it looks to most people to be magic, literally magic.
Wow.
So when AI comes in, for instance, and presents you with news stories with fake, deep fakes that people saying stuff and you can tell if it's them or not, reality is collapsing, literally, for millions and millions of people, if not billions. This is the devil's plan. because if a person can be separated from reality, he can be manipulated any way to Sunday. Anything you want to tell him, he'll believe it, because he can't. There's no touchstone for him to be in reality, so he's just floating around. Hey, I'll believe anything you want to tell me. Anything, any lie. They can't even tell it is a lie.
Wow.
This is the larger problem right now, and I tell you this. I see this in every little, the demonstrations you're talking about. I can see it all over the place, where people are literally being separated from reality, where they cannot tell the difference what is real and what's not real.
Wow, and it leaves us scratching our heads. And the reality that of human existence and who we are and what we've done as a culture for millennia. You say that reality is slipping away. Is it being replaced? So it's being replaced by what people think reality is, and you use a word simulacrum.
That's right.
Yeah. What is
right.
that exactly?
Well, simulacrum was a word coined in about the early 1980s to describe a phenomena where something in reality originally was modeled by something, and that model, simulation, if you will, proceeded to be removed from reality to the extent that there's no reality behind it at all.
Wow.
Think about seeing a mirage in the desert. Palm trees, water, camels or whatever. You see the mirage, but you get there and it disappears because there's nothing there about, there's no water at all. That's what a simulacrum looks like in the end. So as reality moves away from the images from what it was taken from in the first place, it creates its own ecosystem of belief where there's nothing. Here's a better example. Do you remember the movie The Matrix?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where all the people were walking on the street, they're living normal lives. They talk, they eat, all that kind of stuff, and yet their bodies were supposedly in these pods where they were being mined for energy as the simulation was put out to their mind that they were living this normal life somewhere. And it was not true. It just was a mirage. Mm-hmm. That's what people are looking at today. They're separated from where their bodies are to where their mind is, and there's no reality behind it whatsoever. This is so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is probably part of Satan's master plan to divorce reality from the people, so they can be manipulated and led into crazy any activity you can imagine. Mm-hmm. Wow. And that will be probably the closing chapter of Revelation. In the end, I think we'll see the extreme of this when Christ returns for the second time, mm-hmm. and when the people on earth fighting Armageddon at that time leveled all their weapons against him who is coming in the clouds, thinking that they're going to blow him out of the clouds with their pop guns, missiles or whatever. How can they conceivably figure with that scenario that they're going to take their weapons and shoot them out of the sky?
Yeah.
This is totally removed from reality.
Yeah. Yeah, what a great point. I think, the scripture calls it, why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? I mean, that's putting it mildly, a vain thing. It's going to absolutely come to nothing. But I'm thinking even earlier in Revelation when it talks about the image of the beast, that it would speak. And I think to myself, when I first started to study this, I probably had absolutely no idea what that could possibly look like, as well as the mark and many other things that seemingly would be easily implemented tomorrow. Now, at this point in 2023, I think we can say that we really understand with the advent of AI what that image of the beast might be. And so I'm thinking, along with you, the level of deception goes far beyond, I think, the days of Noah. There's something absolutely bizarre about this time frame that we're living in. Do you have any thoughts on the image of the beast and AI and how that all fits?
Well, it really fits totally. When you think about even simple AI right now, simple compared to what's going to be probably 3 or 4 years from now, you can see that it can talk, it can reason, apparently, at least enough to fool a human. It can issue orders for whatever outcome it wants to do. We know that the robotics, for instance, can be hooked up to AI to kill people or cause harm to people. You can see all these things in Revelation where not just buying and selling, stuff like that, but to the execution of those who confess Christ during that period. That's an easy thing that for AI to figure out who's a Christian and who's not. And the next time they present themselves to get food stamps or whatever is going to be out there, they're going to be killed. Period. And we can just see this all over the place right now. It's very clear.
Yeah. One of your front page articles on technocracy.news talks about, we've talked about normalcy bias where people, the holidays are coming, people are going to pretend everything's normal and maybe we'll get better at some point because they refuse to believe that things are getting progressively worse. But then you also mentioned something here called the conformity bias. What's the conformity bias? Because I think if I had a map, I'd say you are here. What is conformity bias?
Well, that's a good one. That was called, for instance, by Ayn Rand, the social metaphysics, where people look to their social group to tell them what is true.
Oh, great.
This I don't talk about a false narrative. So there is no independent or critical thinking going on here, and this is kind of the lazy person's way of acquiring a view of reality. Ask your friends what is true.
What's true and what's real. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yes. Wow. And of course, right now, I think we're in a technocracy with no central figure. But as this grows and grows and grows, Patrick, it seems like the seat's being warmed up for somebody to come in here and just step into that role and just take it all over. It's already there. What demagogue over history wouldn't have loved the scenario that's in place right now to control billions and billions of people, unless they kill half of them off, but billions of people already ready-made for a dictatorship. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a well-known globalist by the name of Praghna,
Indian,
who wrote in a book. I can't remember which one is right now, but he wrote that we're building this global system without a global leader, because he says that the system is the system, and it doesn't need a global leader per se. So so he said that they're being intentional about this. For a Christian, you look at that statement and said, well, it's going to be presented to somebody someday for control, but they're not building it right now without a global leader intentionally. just waiting for this somebody to show up, I suppose, and take it over and use it for their own purposes. But this is what the Antichrist will assume. In the end, he will assume that his position is ahead of the system. And it's really important for people to understand as well, I think, that the devil doesn't need, he's not, he can't be everywhere at the same time. He's not omniscient either. So he needs a system like this to enforce his will on the planet. There's no other way to do it other than just type of AI system will just put the lies out and tell people what to do. This will be tailor-made for him when the start of the tribulation is. I asked this question with who was it, Tom Hughes, I think it was, a few weeks ago. How much time is the devil going to take during the tribulation period to set up his infrastructure? The answer is obviously he's not going to take any time at all. He's doing it now. He knows his time is coming. If he doesn't do it now, he's not going to spend 1 minute developing it during the 7-year period, because he's got other plans for it. Yeah. Honestly, the system is going to be ready for him to take over at the time he appears.
Yeah. Wow. And he'll be busy with political things like confirming peace covenants and that sort of thing. And people are going to be thinking, whoa, what a great world, what a great man this is. And Israel, for all that they're going through right now, I know we started out talking about Israel, but I'm thinking about all that they're going through right now is really nothing compared to what they will go through when they look to him as their Messiah, which is a little bit scary too. I mean, Patrick, there's a lot of scary things on the horizon. We only have 3 minutes left, and I want to give you an opportunity to jump in with anything that we didn't cover that you would like to talk about for a couple minutes.
Well, probably I would reiterate my warning to Christians. Stay away from this issue of blaming any Israel or Jews for anything. You can have any belief you want about policies, about what they might do or whatever, but don't get crosswise with God on this. Yeah. It's not worth it. Yeah. And it's just, this is, when Genesis said that he will bless them, let me turn it back. I got the verse screwed up here. But he will bless those who bless you, and he will curse those who curse you. Don't do that. Don't set yourself up to be a recipient of that curse. Especially for a Christian to do that is just, and it's unbelievable that a Christian could get screwed around to that point where he actually is in enmity with God. Yeah.
Yes, that is.
It's not.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. And America has been pro-Israel since '48, and God has watched out for us. But I think we're going to see, and we are seeing, the blessings being removed. I think God's hand of protection is being removed from America due to many other things, homosexual, trans agenda, abortion, so many other things. And Patrick, thank you so much for being with me today, and Lord bless you in all your hard work. And we're just glad that you're still in ministry. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
All right. Technocracy.news, Patrick Wood. Like I said, he is an expert in all things global. And I just want to leave people with the idea of Israel. What would the world be like? What would we be like if there was no Israel, and all the things that they've invented? The first Intel chip, mobile phone from Motorola, drip irrigation, instant messaging, surgical robots, car cameras, navigation apps, solar windows, flash drives, firewalls, Iron Dome, hundreds of things more. Israel has been a blessing to the world. We need to bless Israel as well. So Thank you for joining me today. Again, tomorrow, Tricia Burton, replay about Mormonism. Thursday and Friday, no podcasts. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Monday, Matt Truella, Scott Shera. Tuesday, Julaine will be with us. Looking forward to that. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. And that is found in 1 Corinthians 15:58. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful day on purpose, and I will be live with a fresh podcast next Tuesday.